Pulling out the coupe at the lot. Told him fuck 12, fuck SWAT. Busting all the bells out the box. I just hit a lick with the box. Had to put the stick in the box. Pour up the whole damn seal. I'ma get lazy. I got the mojo deals. We been trapping like the 80s. She said the nigga so. Got the cash out. Told him wipe a nigga no. Say slash slash. I won't never sell my soul. And I can back that. And I really wanna know where you at. I was at back, where the stash at? Cruise the city in a bulletproof Cadillac. Cause I know these niggas out there where the bag at. Gotta move smarter, gotta move harder. Nigga try to give me 5 mile water. I lay his ass down on my son, on my daughter. I had the Draco with me, Dwayne Carter. Lot of niggas out here playing, ain't ballin'. I done put my whole arm in the rim, Vince Carter. And I know Poppy get a key for the quarter. Shawty barely seen the double C's, I bought her. Got a bitch that's looking like a Leah, she a model. I got the pink slip, my whips is keyless. Compton, I'm about to get the key to the city. Patty, light up the seat. Forgetting out the coupe at the lot. Told him fuck 12, fuck SWAT. Busting all the bells out the box. I just hit a lick with the box. Had to put the stick in the box. Pour up the whole damn seal. I'ma get lazy. I got the mojo deals. We been trapping like the 80s. She said the nigga so. Got the cash out. Told him wipe a nigga no. Say slash slash. I won't never sell my soul. And I can back that. And I really wanna know where you at. I've been moving them out. And steal it with me, then he got the blues in the pouch. Took her to the forest, put the wood in her mouth. Bitch, don't wear no shoes in my house. The private I'm flying in, I never wanna fly again. I take my chances in traffic. She sucking on dick, no hands with it. I just made the rolling plane like a landing strip. I'm a 2020 president candidate. I done put 100 bands on Zimmerman shit. I been moving real gangster, so that's why she pick a crit. Shawty call me Crisco, cause I pop my shit. Got it out the mud. There's nothing you can tell me. Yeah, when I had a job, South Street wealthy. Yeah, I had the coupe at the lot. Told him fuck 12, fuck SWAT. Busting all the bells out the box. I just hit a lick with the box. Had to put the stick in the box. Pour up the whole damn seal. I'ma get lazy. I got the mojo deals. We been trapping like the 80s. She said the nigga so. Got the cash out. Told him wipe a nigga no. Say slash slash. I won't never sell my soul. And I can back that. And I really wanna know where you at.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Crush Live Call-Ins. I'm your host here, Bart Hanson, and we are back. It's 2020, and I'm in Austin. Yes, I finally made it to Austin, and I don't have my official desk yet set up, but I'm in my new office here. This is going to be the look of the call-in show. I got the assembly guys from Wayfair coming tomorrow to assemble my desk, and it's 6:45 here Central Time, 4:45 p.m. Pacific, 7:45 p.m. Eastern Time. So I might be calling this show for 6:45 Central from now on. We've got a boatload of call-ins. If you want to call in to the show, submit your hand. You can take a look at the instructions in the description and email and pre-submit bart@crushlivepoker.com, or you can hit me up on Discord if you are a CLP subscriber. So let's get into it here, and we've got our good buddy who requested that particular song, Roddy Ricch the Box. We've got Squish My Tomato on the line, and he is first up. What's up, Squish My Tomato?
Hey, Bart. What's going on?
What's going on? How is LA treating you?
It's good. It's noisy here. I'm standing outside the bike, and there's a lot of planes flying, but I can't find a quiet spot anywhere in the bike, so this will have to work, I guess.
This will have to do, so you're still grinding the games at the bike. See you play and commentate quite a bit on Live at the Bike. That was all, that was a good thing for me over the last, say, 18 months. We were talking before the show. The unfortunate thing is now the live stream is basically breaking right after 4 hours for the most part, with the exception of the Friday game.
Yeah, so it's just strictly a 4-hour game, and I've been trying to only play the ante game instead of the Thursday and the ante game. So.
Yeah. All right, cool. So let's get into it here. You got a hand. Does this one come from the bike too?
This is at the bike. I'm waiting to get into a bigger game. I'm
Okay.
playing the 5-5-10. The game's actually okay. It's gotten pretty deep. So it's a pretty decent game for a 5-5-10.
So is it a three
Um,
K cap or something, or what's the
this is
structure?
a 2K cap. But in this hand, I'm 6,000 effective with the primary villain.
So this game, the bike has sort of gone through this transition where they had sort of 5-10-20 for a long time, or 5-10 that was 5-10-20 always, and then 5-5-1K cap, and now there's this game, right, which is basically means that 5-10-20 never goes, but there's this 5-5-10 game, right, where they don't allow you to straddle.
Yeah, and I mean this game seems to go pretty frequently, but it's definitely not my favorite game. Just it's got the 2K cap, and it seems to attract like the 2K cap. It doesn't really help with attracting more recreational players. It just attracts like more kind of nitty, semi-serious grinders who are like in between 5-5 and 5-10, in my opinion.
Right, right. So, and I just realized that I hadn't started the recording for the Crush Live Poker video, but we have Squish My Tomato here, fan favorite. He's got a 5-5-10 2K cap game from the bike. All right, Squish, let's get into it here. At the bike, you're 6,000 effective, correct?
Yep, 6K effective.
Yeah.
A serious kind of recreational player opens under the gun 1-35. He's definitely he's out of line pre-flop. He's opening way too wide, especially from early position. I mean, he's opening all kinds of like suited trash. It folds to kind of I guess I haven't really played much with this guy. I kind of categorize him from just playing like 2 or 3 hours with him as like a mediocre reg. I've seen him like 3-bet some offsuit Broadway type hands, so I know he's just got way too many 3-bets.
Okay.
He 3-bets the button to 110. I am in the small blind and I have 7-6 of diamonds. Now, for me, this is normally like a 10% partial. Like I just want like some suited connectors that I'm 4-betting, and I'm going like pretty much primarily linear here, mostly like 10s plus, ace jack suited plus, king queen suited plus, ace king off would be like my normal 4-bet hands, cold 4-bet hands here. But because I've seen this guy 3-bet just like way too much, I think it's like a pretty good spot. And with 7-6 of diamonds, I elect to like make this one of my partials that I'm just going to cold 4-bet here. And I 4-bet to 360. I don't love my sizing in retrospect, but the early position opener folds and the button calls.
So you're 6K effective with the button, right?
Yeah.
So you make it 360, which is basically a cold 4-bet to just over 3x. It's interesting because these are not scenarios that come up all the time, right? Cold 4-betting and sizing, but you are very deep. I would imagine that the cold 4-bet sizing is still probably going to be larger. It's going to be almost like a 3-bet sizing from out of position with this stack depth.
Yeah.
Maybe even
Yeah, I
like
would assume.
450 or something.
Yeah, I would think 4 to 4.5x would be better here.
Yeah. But so you make it 360 and the button calls. You expected to get a fair amount of immediate folds here?
Yeah, I did. I thought he would like fold a lot of his Broadway offsuit trash. I think he's probably actually continuing to the 4-bet like pretty correctly.
Yeah.
Like he's gonna fold like a lot of the hands that he shouldn't have been 3-betting. And I do think he's just not going to 5-bet very much at all. Like if he's going to 5-bet, it's pretty much going to be like aces and like small partials of kings and like possibly some ace king, but not much.
Right, right. Okay.
So the flop comes 3, 4, 5, 3 diamonds.
3 diamonds?
Yes.
So you flop a straight flush?
I flop a straight flush.
What? That's crazy. So you
Yes.
flop a straight flush. So you take this hand that you had 4-bet and you flop a straight flush with it.
Exactly.
That's pretty. So it's a monotone board, right? Totally
Monotone board. monotone board, and this is like the first decision point. Like I wasn't really sure. I don't really like to split ranges in 4-bet pots. I like to usually either check my range or bet my range. And here I thought it was pretty close, but I was like leaning towards a check on this board.
Yeah, but the thing is that are you trying to play your range or your own hand against this guy? Or are you just
And
calling it to ask you ask about it?
that's the question, and where sometimes I think I kind of give people too much credit, especially in like a 5-10 game.
I mean, obviously there's probably going to be a fair amount of checking here with a lot of hands. I get like from your range perspective because you probably don't have all that many for. I mean, he probably is going to have more suited hands, I would imagine, and he probably has more, say, 7-6 types of hands than you do, or you have just partials. So, you know, and hands like aces, especially with like a diamond, they don't really need any protection at all. I mean, the thing that would sort of jump out at me is if I had like aces with the ace of diamonds, I very well might check. And, other types of hands like jacks, queens, kings without a diamond. I mean, I suppose at this stack depth, you could probably play it as a mix of bet or check. If you're thinking about range, I mean, they probably do need some protection, like jacks, queens, black types of hands, but it's hard to continue sort of to erase. But I'm still going to play this as like, okay, this is a recreational player in a spot like this, and I would just sort of tend to bet on the smaller side, right? Like that can't be wrong, just betting, 250 to 300, get a lot of calls in there, and then just continue to bet.
Okay. Well, I do 100% agree with you, but I did check.
Okay. Checks.
I don't love my check. I agree with what you're saying.
Yeah.
So I check. He bets 300.
Oh, this is going to be interesting now that he bets. So Button bets 300.
Yeah, he bets 300.
I mean, I mean, it's kind of interesting because you don't have the ace of diamonds, right? So thinking about the hands that he's going to bet call with here, he could have bluff. So this is a really, really interesting one. And I know that you said you went and looked at this. You said you went and looked at the solver because it would be interesting to see what the solver says in terms of GTO. I don't know what it is off the top of my head. This is what I would be thinking if I played this hand in this manner. I probably would play it as a check call, although I could see sometimes making a small raise if you're going to get like the ace of diamonds to always call. I mean, I think it really depends on what kind of opponent you're dealing with. Is it more of an aggressive one that might just continue, just barrel, those types, which are actually kind of rare, where that would make me lean towards check calling with the hand. But I just feel like if you check call here and you haven't given me the history that this guy is like overly aggressive, if the turn's a blank, I don't know if I expect to see much betting from the guy on the turn if you check the turn. So I could probably go either way with it here. The value in check calling is if you think that the guy basically will continue to fire and you also don't block like the ace of diamonds or the king of diamonds. Excuse me. That would be the value in check calling is you think the guy's going to fire. The value to make a small check raise, of course, would be, you don't block those hands and you're going to get value from those hands basically.
Sure, for sure. I thought it was really close. Do you want to know what the solver?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. The solver did say to check range on this flop, and it also had 7-6. It also had my specific hand as a check raise.
Check raise. Okay.
And
yeah,
it did check raise my hand. I check called.
Okay.
The turn is an offsuit king. So a black king.
Yep.
And it goes check, check.
See, that's going to happen so often, right? The check, check. And
yeah.
I just wonder, like, where you make up for the lack of putting money in on the flop or on the turn. Like, I feel like when you check call the flop, unless you're against a really, really specific type of opponent, when you get a blank turn, or even, like, a lot of just sort of sticky turns, like whether it's even a diamond or like a straightening card, like a deuce or a blank, it's just going to go check, check so often. It's like, where do you make up for your value? Is it through like making a 3x pot size bet at the end? So turns a king of clubs and it goes check, check.
Check, check. Now river is an offsuit 9. So I think this is kind of interesting on this river, um, because I think the question is like, if if he has a hand like Ace King, which he has a lot of Ace King, he's probably going to bet. I don't think he ever has any kings. I think he bets off all his kings on the turn. But I think like he's just going to check back. I mean, obviously he's going to check back like tens, jacks, queens, like all the time.
Right.
So I was kind of confused on this river.
I think I would go for. I think I'd go for 1.5x. So the pot right now is about 13 or 1400, right? Something like that. I think I might bet 2000 ish. 2000.
Just target Ace King.
I don't know if I think you might even still get some calls from. You might even your hand might look like some ace highs, and you might even get some calls from overpairs and stuff like that. Like, it's hard to say because, maybe the opponent is just playing off of his own hand. Like, if he had like jacks, queens, something like that, and you played this line of check call, check check, and then just blast at the end. I mean, I guess somebody might think, oh, you might be playing ace king this way, but you wouldn't be really sizing, I don't think, for this sizing with ace king, but they don't necessarily know that. The whole hand is odd, and I'm going to try to make up for some value here, and I think you actually might get some calls for some of those pairs. You're definitely going to get a call from a king for sure.
For sure. Yeah, I like it. I hate how I played the hand, which is why I wanted to call it in.
Yeah.
I made like a tiny blocker bet. I bet 400. And now something very interesting happens. He quickly raises to 1500.
What?
Yes. So now obviously I'm like, oh, this is great. So I think for a minute and then just move in.
See, I don't. I guess with stack depth, I wonder. I guess at this point, this is similar to that hand that I talked to that I played against. You and I talked about where I played against Maria. I don't think I ever brought that in my content stuff where, like, I had a super nut hand and I sort of checked it back on the turn and she block bet into me. Maria from Live the Bike. Not Maria Ho, but the other Maria. And, 99% of the time your opponent is bluffing here, right? The way that this hand went down. So, although I guess there could be I just don't know I don't necessarily know if I buy the nut flush by, like, betting and then checking back turn. I just would be very, very surprised if your opponent actually has anything. So, if you have stack depth, I always like to give the opportunity, for some sort of crazy rebluff. Like when you said he made it 1500, like my initial reaction is, well, click it back to like 2600, see if he does anything stupid. But who's going to like put in a 4-bet like jam or something like that, right? Like when you click it back. So I guess you just jam and then I just think that this is very, very heavy with bluffs. I don't know the result. Did he snap fold or what? Basically, the way that this hand looks on paper is the guy you induced by block betting here, but I don't think he has anything.
Well, now he actually went in the tank for like 7 minutes.
Really?
And I'm like, what can he possibly have?
Yeah.
He's thinking for 7 minutes. Finally, he folds aces with the ace of diamonds face up.
Wow. Button raises to 1500. And opponent, wow, folds aces with the ace of diamonds, which is so crazy because, like, if he's got the ace of diamonds in his hand, like, your hand should never really be, if you put yourself in his perspective, wouldn't you be curious? Like, how can you jam here without the ace of diamonds, right?
Yeah, I mean, like, it's hard for me to even jam kings there, right?
Right.
Like, even kings with the king of diamonds, like, it's hard.
No, but I mean, what if you had flopped a flush though? Like, what if you had queen jack of diamonds, right? And you played this as a check call, and then the turn was a king. It went check check, and you bet 400 at the end, and you raised to 1500. Like, you're not gonna jam, right?
Yeah, I think I just call.
Right.
Yeah.
So like, if I'm him, and I have the ace of diamonds in my hand, it's really, really weird. It's just like odd. It's like, how can you jam here when I have the ace of diamonds in my hand, right? And I don't know if you put in the whole solver thing where his response, obviously, I don't know if his hand is supposed to be played out this way, but I don't know what his response is supposed to be if he raises the river with aces with the ace of diamonds. It's, you know,
I didn't get that far.
right.
But yeah, I think if I just would have taken the check raise flop and then blast turn, I think I would have got all the money.
You might even have gotten
So
you might have even gotten like you might have gotten raised at some point, right?
yeah,
I mean, he was
for sure.
you mean you're four betting, right? And let's say that you put yourself in his perspective, right? And you don't have a 5-bet range like you talk about. You don't like to have a 5-bet range. So let's say you called in his spot with aces, right? And let's say that you bet small on the flop, right? You're playing against yourself or you're playing against another opponent. There has to be some frequency that you're going to raise aces with the ace of diamonds on this flop if you're playing it as a call to not 5-bet pre-flop, right?
Yeah, I mean aces against a cold 4-bet
Yeah.
on the flop. I mean it's a nuts.
Right. How can you yeah. So it's like, wouldn't you want to start getting money in now before our scare cards come out, basically? Is kind of how I
Yeah,
would
for
look at
sure.
it if I had aces with the ace of diamonds. I mean, so I think you might have gotten raised at some point, if you had bet. But so yeah, that's really interesting. Lee Rubio in the chat says he has to call with him raising to 1,500 and having the ace of diamonds. Well, actually, Mark bet 400, the button raised to 1,500, and then Mark 3-bet jam all in. That's probably the first straight flush you've ever flopped in a 4-bet pot, I'm sure, right?
Yeah, for sure, ever. And I can see why he took so long to think about it. He was just so confused about what possible hand I could have there. So,
But this guy was a recreational player, too?
no, I'd say like somewhere between like a serious wreck and like a reg, like a mediocre reg, like somewhere in that realm.
Yeah. Well, that's
So,
definitely an interesting one, and we'll definitely use that one for YouTube. But I appreciate the call as always. Squish my tomato. Squish
all
my
right, thanks,
tomato,
Bart.
of course, is a top section subscriber as well, and he commentates on Live at the Bike quite a bit now, and yeah, you can see him. Play on Live at the Bike and commentate on Live at the Bike. All right, let's go to our next caller here. This is 447. You're up next, sir. Hello.
Hello.
Yes, this is is this Martin?
Yes. Hi,
Oh,
Bart, you
hey
alright?
Martin. Yeah, this is early, but I don't know. I've got two guys that haven't shown up here for a call, so go ahead. I'll just put them on hold.
Okay, bear with me. I've just got to find the
Oh,
details
no
now.
worries. Again, if you want to call into the show and submit your hand, you can email bart@crushlivepoker.com, bart@crushlivepoker.com, or you can hit me up here in Discord. Martin has a hand here from Britain, right? From the UK?
That's correct, yeah.
All right.
So the game was a 1-2-5 game.
125
But this
pounds.
hand, it was 1-2.
Okay, but this hand was 1-2?
This one hand, yes.
Oh, this
A
one.
new
This
player
one.
come in and didn't. And
Okay.
yeah, a new player just come in on the straddle and didn't straddle.
So normally it's a 1-2-5 game, but this hand is 1-2. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
We've got 1k effective.
1K effective. Okay.
The button won about 3k pot earlier on the night, and he drunk about 4 bottles of wine
Okay.
and was making it 30 pre every hand and just playing a lot of pots,
Okay.
gambling. So where are we? The cutoff limps in for 2,
Yep.
and the button, who's the crazy guy, makes it 11.
Okay.
I'm in the big blind with 6-7 of clubs, and I call,
Okay.
and the cutoff calls.
So open limp here from the cutoff. I don't know how all common that is in this game, but it's typical sort of low stakes. Button raises to 11. Hero calls with 6-7 of clubs in the big blind, and the cutoff also calls. Obviously, you could 3-bet this hand here too. I mean, the open limp from the cutoff, if the button has any idea what's going on, that's so weak, right? I just feel like even though in theory, you're supposed to be raising actually a tighter range over the top of someone that's already entered the pot. In reality, it's almost like old school, like free money. Like the cutoff never has a strong hand. You take the lead. It's just you'll find that a lot of buttons are going to be very, very loose in that spot. So you actually could 3-bet this hand sometimes from the big blind, drive the cutoff off, and find an immediate fold. But okay, you call. So you're
Yeah,
three
I mean,
ways.
I usually would, but because he was a bit of a maniac, he was never folding anyway. So
Okay.
I thought keep the pot small until I've made a hand. So there's 34 and pre-flop,
Yep.
and the flop is 6 of hearts,
Yep.
7 of hearts,
Yep.
ace of spades.
Okay, so you flop bottom 2.
Yeah.
Okay.
I check, the cutoff checks,
Yep.
and the button bet's 18.
Button bet's 18.
Yeah.
So 18 into a pot of about 35. Okay.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I flat call,
And the cutoff?
and the cutoff makes it 38.
Now let's stop you right here. So, I remember this hand when you emailed this in because this is going to get a little bit wild. So first of all, cutoff, before we get to the cutoff. So button bet's 18. 6, 7, ace, 2 flush, right? You flop bottom
Yeah.
2, so you definitely fair to have the best hand here. And it's a draw heavy board. Yeah. When I sort of slow play or don't raise, it's usually when top pair has the ability to change, right? Like somewhat of a dynamic board. Depending on what kind of definition of dynamic you use, whether this is static or dynamic, I mean, it is a 2 flush, right? So things can change, but I think the more relevant part of the hand against the preflop raiser is that can top pair change. So I always look at like certain boards, like if I were to flop a set of deuces on like 9 deuce 3 rainbow, yeah, that could be, a board that I might slow play because it allows your opponent to run into something and to effectively continue to bet when they run into something, or just bluff. As cards
Yeah.
will come that will change top pair from higher than a 9. But usually, like on an ace high board, I don't know. Like I would just tend to raise off here. I feel like almost always with bottom 2 because first of all, it doesn't sound to me like someone's going to fold an ace, but I don't really think you're going to get the bluffing equity later on. I mean, this guy bet you're calling next to act in a multi-way pot. You should probably be only calling here with an ace plus with another guy in the hand. It's different than if you were heads up where you're going to be calling with any pair. But I mean, really, you should be calling with an ace plus and any sort of 8-out draw like open-ended and flush draw. So, for me, if I was the button and I was making some sort of c-bet and you called, I wouldn't be continuing to bluff off. That's why I just feel like check raising here. Like, why did you decide to flat?
My main reason was the way he was playing. I felt like this was a really good opportunity for me to let him just value own himself for 3 streets.
But that's
Whereas
like value own himself for 3 streets. I mean, you're going to have to get a special type of run out for him to value own.
Yeah, I mean, I
for 3
was
streets.
kind of half of that and half also sort of reevaluate on certain turn cards as well. I mean, this guy was just barreling for fun, and it was kind of a little bit like I don't want to raise big on the flop and then see a scare card and him just go pop pop, and he'd been doing that when showing down 8 high and stuff like that before. So I suppose it was kind of a little bit of scared poker as well as
you were
trying
playing
to trap.
Okay, so you were sort of playing it a little bit on the safer side, but you thought that there might be value because he's just going to continue to like barrel anyways. Okay, I just think that I would be raising quite a bit. Okay, so you make the call.
Yeah.
And the cutoff now raised to 35, like a min raise, right?
That's 38, yeah.
Okay, 38. So cutoff raises to 38. Okay.
And the button calls.
Button calls. Wow, that's really interesting. Because the cutoff has sort of made this like ridiculous sort of like click it up raise. You've got bottom 2 here. I don't know if people are overvaluing like top pair. I mean, usually when you get in a situation like this where you've got a guy that's check raised, you've sort of underplayed your hand, but you don't have a super strong hand, then you might sort of just call here and see what's going on. But here on paper, a lot of 1-2 players will just check raise with like an ace here. It seems to me on the surface that back raising here as a 3-bet with bottom 2 seems a little bit strong. Like anyone with any clue should basically fold out a single paired ace. So we never want to get ourselves into a way ahead, way behind type of scenario. And when I'm using that term back raise, what I mean is that when you call a raise, back raise is when you call a bet like you did, like button bets, you call. there's a raise, and then it gets back to you, and instead of calling the raise, you re-raise. That's a back raise. It's like one of the strongest moves in live poker. It's very rarely a bluff. I've instituted it as a bluff a couple of times, looking very strong, and I still didn't get the fold equity. I like to. It doesn't happen all that often, but if you ever run across somebody who likes to check raise over pairs as the pre-flop raiser on the flop, like they raise with kings and they decide to check raise like a ragged board. If you ever get yourself into a situation where somebody else's bet and you have called and the pre-flop raiser check raises with a probable overpair, if it gets back around to you, that's a great spot to back raise, because a lot of times people won't play for all their money in a spot like this. That's a back raise. Anyways, here it could be a little bit of an overplay. What did you end up doing?
So, yeah, I thought as I block pocket sixes, pocket sevens, which are pretty much the only two hands in his range that I'm really scared of after the open limp and then flat call pre.
Uh-huh.
I decided to back raise to 128.
But you
I kind of put him on maybe a nut flush draw with the pair.
Nut flush draw. I mean, that is
because it was.
I mean,
that
is a
small
pretty
raise, and I just thought it was a bit of a value-y, drawy raise.
I mean, that is definitely. I just, like I said, you just don't want to put yourself into a way ahead, way behind scenario where all single paired aces are going to fold out. It would be disaster if the button has like ace, king, ace, queen, and then just snap folds. I mean, yes, somebody could have ace X of hearts, but I mean, that's putting them on a very, very narrow range. So, I mean, first of all, like I said, I would probably check raise flop immediately. Given this, if it was a regular size raise in between, like if it went 18 call and the guy made it 80 and then it went call, obviously you just have a call. But because of this min raise, it is super weird. All right, so you back raise to 128.
And then they both call.
Call. All right, call. So you've put in 128 times 3, which is,
so
what, 384?
Pot's around 420.
For what?
It's around 420.
420. All right, so pot is 420. Oh, that's crazy. That sort of does skew them. It's kind of skews people towards draws. I mean, especially the button, right? Like, how can the button overcall with a hand like ace, king, ace, queen, a back raise? It seems insane. All right, let's go to the turn.
So the turn's a 5 of clubs.
Turn is a 5 of clubs. Okay. So it's a 5 of clubs. So 8-9 comes in. I don't know if it's really all that relevant. I mean, 8-9 would be a combo draw. But, yeah, you might be losing value here. I might be into a situation. It's really odd, right? Because there's a lot of sort of cards that are going to basically kill your action or you're going to sort of give a lot of equity away with a free card. But I don't like it when both people call here. I don't know if you have the best hand. You're out of position. Betting here again might be a bit of an overplay as well. What'd you end up doing?
So I did. I checked and it checked through.
So you check and it gets checked through. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. And the river?
And the river was the queen of clubs, so an offsuit queen.
Queen of clubs. Wow. So this is a really, really interesting one because so it's 6 of hearts, 7 of hearts, ace of spades. Again, the hero has 6, 7 of clubs from the big blind. Just flats pre-flop. Button bets the flop. Hero flats with bottom 2. Cutoff, who's the open limper in the hand, basically min raises against 2 players to 38. Button calls. You back raise to 128. Both players call. So the pot's 420 at 1K effective. Turns the 5 of clubs for ace 7 6 2 hearts. The ace is not a heart. Turns the 5 of clubs. It gets checked through. And now the river's a queen, and it's on you. So the queen is pretty much an inconsequential card unless somebody ran into ace queen. But I feel like there isn't that much value in checking. Like, why do we check the river? We check the river so that somebody might bluff. Check call, I mean. We check the river because somebody might bluff or they're going to value own themselves. I don't think either of those situations are going to happen. I don't think that someone's going to
No.
suddenly blast busted hearts here given this action. And people aren't going to value own themselves with ace king. So you could probably sort of have a blockish type sizing here in order to get called by an ace. Maybe 150 to 175 here, something like that.
Yeah. Now, I tried to bet 112, but as I was putting the bet in, a quarter dropped off the bottom, so I actually bet 87.
Okay. So you tried to bet 112. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, yeah. And it just sort of, as it happened, it just fell out the bottom and it didn't stand, and I didn't kick up a fuss or anything, and just said, okay, it's fine. Acted as though it wasn't intentional.
Yeah.
And whatnot. And so, yeah, I bet 87, the cutoff calls and the button folds, and I'm good.
Cutoff calls, button folds. And you have the best hand.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's a situation where it's a good value bet at the end, right? Obviously, the button's going to have some sort of draw here, and that makes sense. If the button is any type of player, he's not going to be overcalling a back raise with a single paired ace, right? Takes a card on the turn. Yeah. The cutoff is obviously just some idiot, right, that's making like a top pair type of raise that calls your raise and now calls at the end as well. I do think that you probably could have gotten, yeah, I mean, at 420, I might have gone 150 to 175. You try to go 112 and cut off calls and he's good, but I would just take away from this hand that, first of all, I think I'd always be immediately check raising, number one.
Mm-hmm.
And a back raise in this spot certainly gets a little bit on the dicier side. The times that I might actually implement a back raise here is if the cutoff is so bad, and because he uses the sizing at 38, that you can back raise here and just start getting money in against him. Like, you don't care about the button. I'm talking about on the flop. Like, he's never going to fold an ace. So now you're going to back raise. You don't care about the button. And the cutoff's just going to call down. And that happens. I mean, that certainly happens in live poker where the players are so bad that, you know, that certainly can happen. But it's an interesting one.
Yeah.
I appreciate
that. Yeah, that was kind of my plan until the button called, and then my head spazzed out, and I wasn't quite sure what to do on the turn. But
right.
Checking's fine, yeah.
I tend to think so. I do, because I sort of want to see what's going on. You know what I'm saying? Like, I kind of want to see what's going on. 8-9 kind of comes in. You start to maybe value own yourself. But I appreciate the call. Thank you very much, Martin. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Martin.
All right, let's go to our next caller here. This is 819. Who is this, by the way? Who is this caller? Is this Sam?
Hey, my name's no, it's Dan.
Dan. Did you pre-submit a hand here, Dan, today?
I did.
Huh. And you're not, where is, that's really interesting. Your name is Dan. Oh, okay. All right. That's weird.
Yeah.
I don't have you on my list for some reason, but,
yeah, on Discord, my nickname's like the strangest thing ever. It's a joke with my friends, Mongoose Tail.
Oh, that's right. Mongoose Tail. Right. You call it 705. Okay, Mongoose Tail. That's right. Okay. All right, cool. You got a hand for us? Mongoose Tail. Yeah. I remember now. All right, cool.
Yeah, I do indeed. It's 2-5.
Okay.
I was 1,200 effective against the particular villain in this hand.
Where's
really
this played out of?
This is in Montreal.
Oh, okay. Montreal.
Playground.
At the fuck is it called?
Playground. I don't know if you've heard of it. Playground Poker Club.
I've never been there. I've been to the Montreal Casino. Do they not have poker? Does that casino still around? Casino Montreal?
Yeah, the casino's still around, but I mean, it's a pale shadow compared to the playground. Like, the playground's actually a really great place, especially for tournaments. The tournaments are like insanely soft, and Party Poker has a lot of different events that they host there, and they're really good tournaments. So.
Good to be Canadian. All right, so 1,200 effective, Montreal Playground. 1,200 Canadian.
1,200 Canadian.
So it's worth a little bit less. When I went when I went up to Canada for the first time, well, not for the first time, but when I did my first gig with Poker Road at the end of 2007, number one, the guy that owned the site was Barry Greenstein's stepson. They didn't let him in the country. I remember I was with Amanda Leatherman, and I don't know if his brother had a DUI and he stole Joe's C-Box identity. Anyways, we got stopped by customs. We weren't allowed in. We had to drop Joe back in Buffalo and drive back over the border. And at that time, the Canadian money was worth more than U.S. money at that time, even though they hadn't adjusted the sign, so you'd pay less as the toll for Canadian money coming in, even though it was worth more. Kind of a funny little aside.
Wow.
Yeah, but anyways, all right, go ahead.
Definitely not the case now. And
Yeah,
they
yeah.
probably turned away from Quebec, by the way. Like, that was a Quebec-specific thing, probably.
Oh, really? No, it was Niagara Falls.
we
So,
call it the Republic of Quebec around here.
yeah.
I'm from Ontario. I'm not actually from Quebec.
Okay.
But, yeah, so this is at 2.5.
Yeah.
Yeah, 1,200 effective. And it was a really great table. A lot of, pretty great wrecks with, pretty decent stacks. We've been playing. It was pretty late in the night. So, I was happy to get in kind of light. So I raised King Jack off suit under the gun +1. It's a little light, but, a little sloppy. But I wanted to get as many hands in with these players as I could.
So it's 20 or?
Particular build. I raised to 20 under the gun.
Yep.
Under the gun +1, I raised to 20.
Yep.
The villain, who's about in middle position, raises to 45.
So small
which
raise.
Which is interesting. Small raise.
Yeah.
He wasn't doing this stuff too regularly. I'd seen him do a couple 3-bets pre-flop and showdown jacks, queens one time as well, but nothing too unorthodox.
Yeah.
The button calls, just flats the 45, and then obviously I'm not gonna do anything cute and 3-bet under out of position here. I just flat. Flop comes King 7-8.
Wait a minute, hold on a second. So
spades.
button flats,
Yeah.
button flats, right?
Yeah.
And hero calls. So, if it was a normal sizing, right? Like if you made it 20 and the 3-bet was to 65 or 70, you're not going to call with King Jack off, obviously, right? In this spot.
Out of position, no,
Yeah.
definitely not. I mean, it's basically a min raise, right? The odds are so good.
Yeah, it's definitely a min raise, and then you could occasionally throw in here a 4-bet. It's just weird that a bunch of you got a bunch of dead money in here, obviously, right? It's odd.
Yeah, if I'd been on the button, I definitely would have 4-bet. I think. Given that I'm under the, I'm going to be out of position against a min raise. I'm not sure what's going on. I don't know if he's clicking buttons, and I just it's just so easy to just flat here and see a flop for so cheap. So. Right.
Okay. So let's go to the flop.
That was. Yeah, so flop comes King of clubs, 7 of spades, 8 of spades. So the King's not a spade.
Got it.
Which is probably what's going to be significant. We have the Jack of spades, so King, Jack,
okay.
Jack of spades.
All right, so I'm going to put King of diamonds,
so
Jack of spades. Yep.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. I check.
Yep.
The villain bets 75.
MP 175. Button folds, okay.
Yeah, so villain bets 75.
Yep. MP 175, right? Button folds, yep.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And then I just flat.
Right, hero calls. Okay, so 3-bet pot, 20, 45, button calls, you call. Pot's probably 140. King 7-8, 2 spades. Without the King of spades, you have the Jack of spades. Check, 75, fold, you call. So somewhere around 290 now, and your head's up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, yep.
Turn brings 5 of hearts.
5 of hearts. Okay.
Yeah, 5 of hearts. So
yeah.
Inconsequential for the villain's range, I would imagine. I just check. Villain now bets 100 into 290.
Okay.
I just call.
So now it's 490. So he bet 75 on the flop. He bets 100 on the turn. It sort of seems like he wants to just kind of get to showdown.
Yeah, exactly. That was kind of
these reverse showdown bets. So it's weird because this almost feels like a king queenish type of hand, something like that. I guess it could be some ace king. You'll find sometimes
sometimes.
Well, you'll find sometimes
I was thinking sometimes jacks or something like that here and there, but it's kind of weird that he's
right. And what I was gonna say about that though is that you would find those types of sort of protectionish, I'm going to try to get to showdown bets with second pair to the board. Number one, not that frequently you're going to find that 3 ways. And it's not going to really be on king high boards. It would be more like a guy has jacks and the board comes out queen deuce 3 and you check call and the turn's a 7. And he bets again heads up and then he takes a showdown at the end. At least that's my take on it. So I'd be very surprised to see jacks or queens here, starting with a bet on flop, continuing to bet on turn. But okay, so obviously we're not going to fold here. So not now.
The other thing about that is that
when you have those kind of like blocker, I want to see the end of this hand like really cheaply. Like that's generally when they're out of position, right? Like he bets 100 to just keep it cheap, hoping I'll call it. Like if he's got a marginal hand he's not comfortable with, it's like why is he betting 100 when he can just check it back?
Well, yeah, but they're betting 100 though because they don't want to face a large bet at the end. It's a reverse block, as we call it. Like I said, all these terms are made up, but it's basically giving them their blocking turn in position to give them a showdown instead of it going check back and then facing a large bet from up front. I mean, I think your hand is just a call here anyways. He bets 100 into 290 and you call, right? So the pot's 490.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Pot's 490. So river brings out a 10 of spades. So the 9 jack gets there and the front door spades get there.
So that should shut the action down, right? I mean.
Yeah. So I mean, obviously I check. But now what's interesting is that he bets 100 again. And like
button bets. Actually, you know what's interesting here? What's your name again? Dan. I might bluff the river if I were you, but I might do it from as a bet at the end. Like you were saying, because okay. So here's the thing, like. I mean, I suppose you could say that you have a hint of showdown value here where sometimes it might go check, but sometimes you can take a bad top pair and bluff with it here at the end. I feel like this run out, I mean, I guess you are opening from +1. I don't know if these guys like hand read, but if you come out and bet like 400 to 450, it's really hard for like king, queen, or ace, king to call. And normally if you check, those hands are just going to check back. And you're going to lose. I know that didn't happen. It's just a thought that I had quickly out of my head. You checked.
Yes, just like lead out like 350 there type thing. Like
maybe 400. Bet
you
400.
think it's be a little higher?
Yeah. Bet 400 as a bluff. So you check. Okay.
Yeah, I checked. Yeah, because I was like leaning towards like I have some sort of showdown value, but then when he bet 100 again, I just thought. Like kind of what you were saying before, it just looked like he felt so uncomfortable with his hand, like he had something, I thought this smells so much like king, queen, or ace, king that's like not really comfortable. And I really thought, man, like I should have just let out and bluffed here, but I didn't. But now, I mean, how strong does a check raise look here? Like I was thinking, this guy's going to just fold ace, king. He's going to fold. I think he's going to fold king, queen here. I mean, a straight got there. The front door flush got there.
So he bet 100. He bet 100 at the river. Is that right? He bet 100.
He bet 100 at the rivers.
Yeah.
And that was the other thing. Like I can make this check raise really cheaply, given that he just like allowed me to by just betting another 100. So
it's really weird, right? That he bets 100. Like I don't even know if like ace king. Yeah, I mean the interesting part here is. Probably calling is probably not. You're probably not going to be good here 1 out of 5 times, right? So
yeah, that's kind of how I felt. Like I thought it was a lot of ace kings and king queens.
That he was going to bet 3 times, even for. I mean, even though the front doors came in, that he I mean, I can see. I can definitely see where you're going with it. I just don't know if it is ace king or king queen. Those hands are checked back so much. You know what I'm saying? Like if he has ace king with the ace of spades, he probably should bet, but a lot of guys don't. So it must be that you're thinking of check raising here, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, the concept of check raising the river as a bluff normally comes into play, and it's not complex, but a lot of people can't visualize this like to sort of fit it in, is when you have a hand that has some showdown value. You go for a check raise bluff at the end because some of the time the river will go check, and you'll win with your showdown value. But when your opponent bets, you normally now realize that your hand is no good. So that's why sometimes you turn that into a bluff through a check raise. Whereas it's not a great approach to take like a missed draw and go for a check raise on the river, because if you don't get the check raise in, you lose because it goes check. So that's the difference, right? You also block some of like the kings up types of hands. So what did you do? You check raised or what?
Yeah, I check raised to 400.
So he bets 100 into 4. Again, it's king of clubs, 7 of spades, 8 of spades, right? In a 3-bet pot, 75 fold call, turns the 5 of hearts, check, 100 into 290, you call, pot's 490. River's the 10 of spades, check, he bets 100 into 490, and hero raises to 400,
400.
which is basically making it like 990, 400 to call, so it's less than a pot size bet. I mean, I guess I can get on board with it. I might go a little bit on the larger side. I'm not convinced when he bets here that he has ace king or king queen. What ended up happening?
It's actually not believable. But so villain raises. So villain 3-bets
Okay.
all in
All right.
for 800 total. So, or sorry, 850 total. So another 450.
Another 450. So, I mean, I would imagine that you would fold
But
now, right? I mean,
yeah, I mean now I'm like, but I'm trying to think. Like, I mean, okay, it was ace king of spades, ace queen of spades. He just like bet these small feelers to get there on the river. He got there and he just bet 100 like some donkey. Like, what the hell do you have? Like pocket
Right.
king if I have the king blocker. Did
Yeah.
you run in the pocket 10? Like, but then why bet 100? So I couldn't. I was like, okay, it's got to be ace king of spades. That makes the most sense. Maybe
Right.
ace queen of spades.
Right.
I
Well,
fold.
ace king of spades would make the most sense to me too. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, he flips over. It's honestly not even believable. He flips over for queens.
Queens?
Queens.
Wow, that's
I
crazy.
never. Yeah, it's insane. Like I actually like I got up and like went. It was like hilarious. Like I went and had a shot. Like just laughed with my buddies. I've never seen. Like I mean, it's literally clicking buttons.
So what did he? You have no idea why he 3-bet queens at the end. Like he didn't think he was bluffing. He just was literally no idea what was
No,
going on.
like he said I don't know. I just felt that you didn't have anything. Was what he said.
That you
And I'm
didn't
like,
have anything.
Yeah, and
Which
I'm
is
like,
really
well,
funny, right?
that
Because
is
this is the
Yeah.
from a theoretical perspective, if you don't have anything, or if you're very bluff heavy, or you have a strong hand, that is what polarized is, right? So if you have a medium strength hand in your opponent's position with queen queen, because let's make the assumption that no one's going to be turning a king into a bluff in your spot. It's a very rare play, right? Obviously that you're making. So if you're either bluffing or you have something strong, there would be no reason to raise queen queen. Like if you have
No, precisely.
if
Yeah.
you have a bluff catching hand or even a second nut hand, even a hand as strong as a second nuts, if your opponent is polarized by making an action that's representing the nuts or a bluff, if you have a second nut hand or a very strong hand, it's always a call. There's no reason to ever raise back against a polarized range. It makes no sense. If the polarized range is the nuts or a bluff, then everything in between that you want to call with is a call. There would be no reason to 3-bet a polarized range. Yeah, that's obviously button clicking, for sure.
Yeah, it was insane. Yeah.
I wonder what would have happened though if you had upfront bluff like I had suggested. I don't know. It's kind of interesting. But thanks for the call. I appreciate
Maybe
it.
it was about it. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
Bye.
All right, bye. Who is this guy? I'm all confused. Is this Jesse?
Yes, sir.
Oh, from you. What is this deal with this number here? 801. Was that always your number?
No, I'm calling from a Google Voice line.
Oh, okay. I was all confused because you had a 617 number for, right? Or something? Or
508.
Oh, 5. Yeah, okay. That's very, very confused. So we got one of the legends here on the show, Jesse the Suit. And then after Jesse, we're going to actually have our own Ryan Terpestra, Terp himself, who is our PLO instructor from Crush Live Poker, call in with a Hold'em hand. All right, Jesse, which hand did you decide to go with here today?
I think we were going to go with the 4-bet one.
Okay. So MGM, National Harbor.
Yes.
And
It's 510, about 2K effective.
so do you now not play 2-5 live? It's not worth your time?
I don't play very much. I basically will only go to the casino now if there's like a reasonable prospect of being able to play 510.
Just because whatever, it's just not worth the time?
Yeah, for the most part, it's not worth the time, and like the people at 510 are really not that much better, and the
Right.
rate is much better. So
Right.
yeah, it's usually not worth it. I play online more now, so like it's not as attractive to go play 2-5.
Right. All right, so are they still playing 5-card PLO there too? High?
They are still playing a lot of 5-card PLO high. 1-2, 5 to bring in, and 5-5. I think usually with a $10 straddle.
And you haven't gotten into that at all?
I've learned like PLO like a little bit. but definitely not yet comfortable to move into that.
Okay.
But I'm sure that those are very profitable games because, people are bad.
All right. So how deep are you here?
So yeah, we're 2K effective, 510. So guy opens under the gun. Guy opens low jack to 30.
All right. LJ to 30. Standard open size?
LJ to 30. Yeah, standard. People vary between 25 and 35.
Yep.
The button 3-bets to 100, and we are in the big blind with ace king offsuit, and we cold 4-bet to 300.
So low jack to 30, button 3-bets to 100, and you are in the small blind. Is that right?
The big blind.
Okay, hero in big blind, and you 4-bet.
Yep.
To
300.
300. All right, to 300. So I don't know if you caught the beginning of the show, but Squish My Tomato had a 4-bet hand, but he was you're much shallower. So I think the the sizing is definitely different. So
yes, I'm much shallower, and I saw the playback of Squishy's hand. I think my 4-bet range will also be much tighter because we're much shallower. I don't think I need to worry quite as much about board coverage because we're gonna have an SPR of like 3 or something. So I don't think it would be profitable to say 4-bet 6-7 of diamonds here unless I know who's gonna flop a straight flush. Then you always do it.
Right. All right. So, and what's your hand here?
I have ace king offsuit.
Ace king offsuit. All right. So you 4-bet.
I don't remember the suits because they don't have anything relevant to the hand.
Okay. Yep.
So opener folds and 3-better who's a reg looks at my stack and decides to call. So we go to a very bone dry flop of 8 deuce rainbow.
And the 3-better is on the button, right?
The 3-better is on the button.
Okay, so you 4-bet ace king cold out of the big blind, 30, 100, 300 fold call, pot's like 640, 8 deuce. And one of the things here that we differ here is that I feel like just right off the bat here, Jesse, with this board and specifically with you having ace king, I might just go for gold in the sense that I might just be barreling off here. If ragged cards come out, depending on the opponent, and sometimes it is opponent specifically, I like having some ace kings as just basically a triple barrel off. Yeah.
I think it would depend on the run out, so we'll get there. But so starting with the flop, I think this is a clear range bet. I don't think it would make sense to check anything here because the board essentially should mean essentially nothing to either of us given the ranges.
Yep.
I don't see how he can have an 8. That'd be kind of crazy, and I can't probably really either. So I bet 200.
By the way, you have to like shape the sizing properly too. So hero bets 200 and call. So now the pot is what, 1,400, and you've got 1,500 left in your stack. Is that what's going on?
No, it's about 1K. I bet 200. 2 into 640.
Right.
Call.
Oh,
like
excuse
1040.
me. Pot. Okay, sorry. 1040. So the pot is 1040, and you've got about 1,500 left in your stack, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And the turn is another 8.
So it's 8, 8, deuce, 8. 8, 8, deuce, 8. Okay. So 200 call, about 1.5 SPRs left. So, just like even eyeing this, like if you say, for example, if you bet half the pot here on the turn, the pot would be 2,000 if he called, and then it leaves you with a half pot size bet left. So that's where I'm sort of thinking with this here, specifically with ace king. And I think, honestly, I would be playing my aces and kings here sort of in the same way. Now, you seem to think that you would play this a little bit differently. Is that right?
My inclination is because it's sort of like we either have the nuts or we have nothing in this situation. I'm not sure how I can construct a range that has any balance across 3 streets. So my inclination is to check my entire range on the turn and then only bet the river.
Well, why can't wait a minute. If your cold 4-betting range is so tight, you have a natural balance in your. If let's say that you are going to go with, maybe this is a little bit of a stretch, but let's say that you're going to go with queens plus across 3 streets, right? So that is 18 combos of hands, queens, kings, and aces.
Yes.
Well, ace king
No,
is 16 combos of hands, right?
There's a natural balance if I don't split on the turn. So I think there are two ways you could do it. You could either bet your entire range across all three streets, or you could you have to take consistent actions across all three streets.
Right.
I think that there is some benefit to not betting one's entire range on the turn. I mean, among other things, I tend to usually use the turn as the spot where if there seems to be no sensible split, that I will usually check range, because I think that that's sort of the easiest to manage.
I just don't know. Like, I can't even, I just, when you get to an SPR of 1.5 specifically, where, you still need to get some money in there. I can't imagine that there's going to be a lot of checking with aces and kings and things like that. You're going to be wanting to pile money in. That's why I think it's a natural balance that you have your ace king, because it's such a tight 4-betting range that you have half bluffs, half value if you play it sort of in a balanced manner. I just can't picture myself really checking aces and kings here. I'd want to get as much money in as possible, but okay. So you decide to check.
Well, you can accomplish. Well, yes. So I check. The river is a 10, and we bet 1,000, which in retrospect I think is the clear mistake that I made. I think that if I'm going to do this, I should shove the river.
So wait a minute. It goes check, right? Check.
Yeah, turn goes check.
All right. So
that's the other thing, is I think that people will actually telegraph the strength of their hand a little bit on the turn, and that they will bet hands that they probably shouldn't. And if they check, they probably mostly have ace high.
Like, what hands do you think that they what hands? Again, I just go back to the very, very tight, what you had said, that you're going to have a very, very tight 4-betting range. And it's not really even that out there to have a 4-betting range of ace king here, ace king suited, maybe ace queen suited, and maybe like partials, I assume jacks plus, right? So that in itself is going to be 24 combos. If you have ace king and some ace king suited, that's like 20 combos. I feel like you have a natural balance here, but I do want to get to some of this other part here too. So quickly check on the turn, right? On an 8, and now the river's a 10, and you said you bet 1,000 even though you had 1,500, and you think that you should shove.
In retrospect, I think it makes more sense to shove.
Well, if you shove, obviously your opponent gets a much worse price, right, on their bluff catch, right? My thinking here is, when you email this hand in, though, is that I do think that ace king actually has a monicum of showdown value here, where I would rather make this play if I were to take this line and bluff ace queen and bluff like ace 5. I don't know if I would do it with ace king.
I don't think I 4-bet either of those hands.
You don't cold 4-bet?
Maybe I cold 4-bet ace 5, ace queen suited.
Uh-huh.
I think ace 5 is. I don't think that at this stack depth that would be, given the way that these people tend to play, I don't think that would be a profitable bluff.
Okay, I'm just saying.
I could be wrong.
If you ever get there, if you were deeper and you decided to make this, the point that I'm trying to draw out here is that there are different values of ace highs, and I feel like sometimes people get a little bit lazy not bluffing ace king off of a hand when you have a weaker ace high. They just tend to give up.
Yes.
And they're like, "Oh, I have ace high." Well, you're not going to win.
Particularly
with ace 5.
Particularly if we were in a spot where I had ace queen offsuit, I think it would be quite clear that you would not bluff ace king, because it would be very inefficient.
Yeah.
But in a spot where I certainly don't have ace queen offsuit, that would be terrible.
So you bet 1,000.
Maybe I have ace queen suited.
Did you get called?
And probably ace queen suited is the worst hand that I can ever have. But I think it might even be fine to slightly overbluff here, because I don't think someone's going to call, particularly a $1,500 bet without queens.
So you bet
for tens?
Right. So did you get called here?
No, he snap folded.
So he snap folded. Interesting.
Yes.
Interesting.
He thought about it for a second.
I mean, I can get on board with what you're saying. If you're going to check your entire range, I guess that's really what the crux of this hand is that I don't think it's a check on your entire range on the turn. But if you're going to check your entire range on the turn and you sort of want to play balance and you want to make up for the value lost, then it would make sense to bluff all in and then bet for value all in too. At the end.
That is of course the logic of it.
Right. And but I mean the thing is that there aren't a lot of people that turn ace king into a bluff here either. So I think you'd seem to get a fair amount of credit here. And you know
I think I would. Yeah.
and it also gets into a situation of a weird live thing where people do, I don't know who this guy is on the button, but a lot of live players, they will not look at the math and sometimes call down more when they're getting worse of a price because they think that the bluffing frequency is higher with an all-in as opposed to a value sizing where you'll actually get folds more often, which is somewhat odd, right?
It's conceivable. I'm not actually sure how it works because I'm the only person who seems to bet this large in any context.
Uh-huh.
So it's weird. It's like people like the pot is $1,500 are still betting $400 in the river. I'm like, I'm not exactly sure what's going on.
Yeah, no, that's
But
interesting.
like, whatever, man.
That's interesting, and maybe you have another interesting hand, and maybe I'll email you. Maybe we'll call in next week with the 10-9.
Sure.
Too. Okay. All right. Thanks, Jesse. Appreciate it.
Take it easy, Bart. Later.
All right. Last caller here. This is going to be Ryan. Ryan, what's going on, Ryan? Ryan, our PLO instructor.
You didn't want to take a shot at the Dutch last name again, Bart?
Terpestra, right?
That is every telemarketer that I've ever encountered.
What's the last name?
So it's Terpstra.
Oh,
so
Jesus Christ! I feel bad.
It's dude. It's 5 consonants in a row. Everyone needs to put a vowel in there somewhere.
Here,
I've been hearing it my entire life.
So let me ask you about this thing that you're doing with, because I actually, before we take the call, I'm actually texting the owner of Texas Card House, Austin, here, because he doesn't know that I'm in the middle of the show and they're doing the live stream. But why don't you tell us a little bit about the thing that you're doing with Casey Mills and the, what is that? The Liquid Lounge? Is it the Galfon challenge?
Yeah, it should be the Liquid Lounge.
What is it called?
It's Thirst Lounge.
Oh, Thirst Lounge.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have some they have some drinkers on that team. So yeah, what's going on with the Thirst Lounge at Casey Mills?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'd be happy to plug what we have going on the site. So if you've been paying attention to the PLO battle plan, which we've been putting out over the last year, I had 2 new videos come out, and they're like 2 of a 4-part series where Casey Mills, who's Poker Mama for all those who watch the Stone stream or maybe follow her on Instagram or whatever, she is part of the Thirst Lounge crew, which is the Bill Perkins jam that goes down to his spot in the U.S. Virgin Islands, and they stream poker from the house that they live in, the boat, and it's kind of like a lifestyle / poker thing. And because Bill, is a billionaire and loves poker and is very, very fly by the seat of your pants, he signed up for the Galfon Challenge, and he signed up first.
Okay.
And for those who don't know what the Galfon Challenge is, it was an open challenge to anyone who wanted to play a little 200, 400 heads-up PLO versus Phil Galfon.
Yeah.
And they decided to take him up on it. Obviously, Bill is fronting the money.
Right.
And then after he accepted it, his informing Casey and the rest of the Thirst Lounge members was a tweet that said, "Hey, start studying PLO." That's the first they had heard of it.
Okay.
And he had already accepted the challenge. So later on this month, they are going to battle Phil heads up 200, 400, and the winner will be the cumulative winner of money across 50,000 hands, or it will be the first person that incurs like a 10 buy-in loss, which I think is somewhere around like a buy-in could be like 40 grand. So it'd be like a $400,000 loss.
So a number of different players are going to play against Galfond, right?
Yeah. So how he has it set up is he has it set up kind of in tiers. So this is what they're calling made for TV. So it's like just a group of people that want to play. And how it's going to set up is that Bill Perkins can play, and any member of the Thirst Lounge team that wants to play can like tap in like a tag team in professional wrestling. They can just tap in and play at any point throughout their time of the challenge.
Okay.
And then Phil also set up a challenge to anyone from a competing coaching site that wanted to play those stakes, unless you want to give me a raise, I declined to hop in some 200, 400 heads up. But he threw that out there, and then he was setting up some things with other outside people. I know he and Jungle Man have something going on. He and Brandon Adams are going to play live. It's just a promotion for his site running up. And then also, I think he just wanted to put it out there and put an old school challenge on the table. And so Perkins and the Third Lounge team, which includes Casey, are going to be playing him this month. And none of them really have much PLO experience, and certainly not a whole lot of heads-up PLO experience. So Casey and I were able to connect. Of course, she's a mutual friend of yours. And we said, hey, we'll be happy to give you as many resources as we can through Crush Life Poker just to assimilate you from a no-limit background into a PLO background. And then she and I did some one-on-one coaching. Those are the 2 videos that went up on the site this month.
Yep.
Next 2 videos go up next month. And then she and I, along with the help of some CLPers on Discord, are working on her with a heads-up game with a slant of not trying to, be as good as Phil Galfond and win, but like taking an actual game plan against him, given her experience and given what they'll have, I guess you could say, at their disposal. And that's something that we're working on that is not going to be a video, but it is something that she and I are working on. She flies out there today, and we've got a call set up for Wednesday.
Joey Sal, my buddy Joey Sal said, I have to bring this up, and then we're going to get to a no-limit hand, right? You're calling in about a no-limit hand.
Yeah.
Jay Nandez confirmed and then backed out. What happened with that? The Galfond challenge.
So that's 100% true.
Yeah.
Jay Nandez said he was interested, and I think he initially said smaller stakes. Then Galfond's like, nah, I'm not going to do that. Then Nandez accepted. I guess everyone figured they found the backing. And then they announced it, and they made a graphic about it and everything, and then he backed out. And his reason was, I didn't know I'd have to, invest this much time into it or something like that, which was really a crock, because if you're going to sign up for something at that level, how is that not going to consume most of your time preparing and then playing that?
I mean,
and a lot of people think he just did that to get the promotion of his site, and then he backed out. And Galfond, being the nice guy he is, didn't have any kind of legal setup where if he backed out, he'd have to pay. So he really kind of got away with it.
Well, I mean, so Fernando, I've met him a few times. I did an interview with him. Conlon Ma, of course, who used to be the top section, coach. We went out to Joe Rubershon, the 3 of us together. This was 2 summers ago. And he told us his side of the story with Upswing before the stuff came out. He was telling us, he's like, this is about to come out, and this is my side of the story. And, he made it sound unbelievable, but when these things continue to fall into different patterns, you wonder. He's not, I would say now, one of the more respected sort of training people now because of these things. I'm talking about Jay Nandez.
It's tough.
And I don't know. I don't really know what to say.
I can believe the Upswing thing, just like you can, because there are 2 sides to every business story.
Right.
And then he had the thing coming out where you wouldn't pay for some merchandise that somebody made for him or somebody's family member made for him.
Well, he fired his. He basically what ended up happening from his side of the story was that the people that were making, sort of the visuals for him. I mean, he has an interesting model. I wish I had people doing this for me, where there were people that were working for him that would basically come up with sort of the course plan, the visuals, and he would just record over it, whereas I do everything, right? He would record over it. He would be the face of it, but some people were doing the coursework, and I think according to him, these people basically came to him and said, we want a piece of the company. We're going to stop working if you don't give us a piece. And he said, fine, leave. And that's his side of the story. And those people had been contracted to do some of those people mother had been contracted to knit these fucking,
scarves.
Jay Nandez scarves,
scarves,
you know
right?
what I mean? But I don't know. Anyways, so it's interesting. So PLO Battle Plan, you're working with Casey Mills, and of course, Ryan has podcasts and videos that come up on the site, every month, 2 or 3 pieces of content. So we do have PLO and Crush Live Poker, but let's get into this no limit hand here that you got here.
Yeah, this is from a round by round game. So this has kind of been my bread and butter game for a number of years here in Michigan, as this is a private game. And I would always say, and I think you, especially as someone that plays as much 08 and now hopefully Big O, as
I love
as
Big
you
O.
do, is that
Love Big O.
yeah, well, you live in Texas now, so I hope you
Right.
love Big O.
Right. Yeah.
And I think that these, if you can get, like, and you've said this, I know plenty of times, learning other variants of poker helps your main game.
Right.
And if you can find a game like I have been able to find where they will play multiple games, in this case it's no limit and PLO, and you can get good at both, but you also can be elite at one, but also good in the other. Like, you really, really pound on people who just don't have the stuff that can do both games.
Yeah.
And I think that that's been like a big thing I've encouraged people that want to learn PLO is like, yeah, learn it well, because then if you can find a good round by round game, you're going to be at a huge, huge advantage.
Right.
So this is from a private 5-5 uncapped round by round game.
Okay.
It's like a mix of rec players. So we have, your typical rec players in these games. And then we also have some of the better players in the area that play in this game, because it's uncapped and it has played extremely big. We've seen people lose like 6 figures in this game before.
Okay.
And that's and it can also be a very quiet game. It kind of depends on the mix of the players.
Right.
But this hand happens to be against the other 2 top regs in the game, winning players. They've both won 6-figure scores in tournaments, and they both are very good at cash.
Dash
and
Dudley?
Both professional.
Dash Dudley?
This is not a dash hand.
Oh, okay.
If you want a dash hand, I can give you a dash
No,
hand.
it's okay.
Dash does play in this game, but
okay.
Dash fortunately gave us a break, and he wasn't there on this particular night. But yeah, Dash is both of our boys.
So is this a straddled pot then at 5-5? No limit, or is it just straight 5-5?
Typically it gets straddled, but mostly in the PLO rounds. You know how
Okay.
it gets gambly once
Right,
you turn to
right,
PLO.
right.
So no limit actually plays very similar to what I think you'd find at a 5-5 no limit table in a casino. It's the PLO that gets crazy in this one.
Yep. Okay.
So we have 2 other good regs, and then myself, who happens to be the hero, and we start with 1,400.
Okay.
Villain 1, who will be relevant in the hand, does have us covered.
Yep.
Villain 2, we cover. Villain 2 has about 700.
Okay.
So the action folds to the hero in the hijack. We are dealt 8 of clubs, 8 of diamonds.
Okay.
So pocket 8s.
Yep.
And I opened to 20, which has been the standard size open, about 4x in this game.
Open to 20. Okay.
So Villain 1 is behind us on the button.
Okay.
And he is very aggressive, and he was especially aggressive in earlier streets. I think he gets more standard as the hand continues to play on.
Okay.
So he 3-bets us to $60 on the button.
Okay.
And then Villain 2 in the big blind smooth calls.
And now it's back over to you.
Back over to me to close the action, and I decide to call.
Okay. So I'm sure that you have, even though you do play a lot of PLO and you're the PLO instructor on Crush Live Poker, I'm sure that you've taken in a lot of no limit content as well. One of the things here that I would say, like against any other call in, is that when somebody flat calls here, 3-bet in between, there's extra dead money out there. This is definitely late versus late. Hijack and having pocket 8s is really on the cusp. If I was in the cutoff, I would seriously consider 4-betting this hand. And I think once you start to get to 9s plus, it almost becomes a mandatory 4-bet late versus late. Here, it's probably I'm just saying that it's not always just, we're just calling 100% of the time. No, this is a 4-bet some of the time here. I know you're going to get into some awkward stack sizes, but you'd be, with that extra dead money out there, late versus late, and the 3-betting ranges being somewhat wide, you can definitely have a wider 4-betting range than what you would think. Obviously, it would just be a defend heads up. You open hijack to 20, button 3-bets to 60. You would just call for the most part. But with that extra dead money out there, you can sometimes 4-bet. This would be the bottom of it. Obviously, calling is not bad too. So you call, and we're at about $190, right, to the flop.
Yep, that's correct.
Okay.
And after years of being a faithful No Limit subscriber and listener to Bart Hanson's material, I thought that this was a flat. in this case. But I do get what you're saying when it comes to especially that big blind in between is attacking that dead money. And I thought about it, but I did think eights was a little bit too light for me, because if I get re-raised or if I have to play out of position against the button, let's say I do eliminate the big blind from the hand, I was concerned about having a tough stack size with him having position on me. So that's why I thought a flat might be better in this instance.
Okay. So we're going to go 3 ways. Yep.
Okay. And then, of course, we hit a gin flop, because otherwise this hand might not be that interesting. But the flop comes down 8 of spades, 4 of hearts, 3 of hearts.
So you flop top set in this 3-way 3-bet pot.
That is correct.
Yep.
And on a very low board. So my hand tends to be not only obviously the best hand right now, but I'm not as worried about a lot of other stuff as if, I flop top set of jacks on Jack 10, 7 or something like that. So
right.
I feel like this is a very static board, considering it's a 3-bet no limit pot.
Yeah.
We good? All right. Big blind checks to us, which I kind of consider to be playing in flow from him.
Of course.
And then I think a lot of people would think the standard play is to check and let the button continue, because the button probably should be betting his entire range on an 8-high board.
Mm-hmm.
I decided to mix it up and lead $100 here. 2 reasons why. One reason was I thought I could maybe induce a raise from his overpairs, or maybe like ace king of hearts or something like that, ace queen of hearts, or it would make my hand look more like a draw that was, trying to bet and see if I could get, to a turn without getting, raised or playing it a little bit less than I thought would be what would look like a set. So I decided to lead the flop instead.
Here's the thing. So it's definitely non-standard, right? It's very, very non-standard. This would be a play that I would make, back in the day, like leading out with a strong hand. And now I sort of tend to check and flow, like you were saying, to the pre-flop raiser, especially in a 3-bet pot, though I probably wasn't doing that much leading into a 3-bet pot with top set. It's hard to balance. Not that that is necessarily all that relevant. I guess you could be betting some of your sort of combo-ish types of draws, like 5, 6 of hearts, but I like to take all those hands and do it as a check raise balance anyway. So I'd check raise my big hands, check raise my combo draws. If the button is competent, I don't know if he's going to be raising a whole lot of over pairs. Like if you led into me here and I was competent and you were competent, I don't know if I'm really like doing a whole lot of raising here. Because what's really the point here if I were to have like aces or kings? Now, if I was up against like a moron, but this doesn't usually typically happen in a 3-bet pot, it's sort of like in a single raise pot. I have certainly been known to raise over pairs on boards like this and also just raise as a bluff. So it is certainly non-standard, and there is no computer answer for this. There's no solver answer for this, like in a 3-bet pot, like, monk or solver. How often are you leading into the pre-flop 3-better? I've never seen any of those stats. And you could always make a computer type situation, like probably have a leading range, but I've never seen it. It's just very, very unorthodox. The reason why I would tend not to do it as much is because multi-way here, as opposed to sometimes getting tricky and doing it heads up, is because you're not going to get the call from ace highs because there's a guy behind you. So if the competent button here has like a hand like ace queen and you lead, he just has to fold. Whereas if you guys were heads up and you're like, well, I'm going to lead here, I'm going to get the calls from ace highs that are going to check back anyways, I'm going to play this, maybe I'll induce some sort of bluff raise or something crazy, I can see that. But that would be the main reason why I wouldn't lead here multi-way from the middle into a 3-bet pot, because you're not going to get the ace high calls from the pre-flop 3-better, or he shouldn't call, due to the fact that he shares sort of this multi-way he's got less responsibility to the pot because there's a guy behind him. So if you're in that guy's spot, if I'm in that guy's spot and I have ace king black, I can't really call all that much with a guy behind. So that's why it's a little bit non-standard. But okay, so you bet 100.
Yeah, and to your point then, Bart, just because from a theory standpoint, I'm interested, like, because of that, and because we're maybe putting him in awkward spots, I mean, should we be leading stuff, like let's say we get here with like 6-7 of hearts, gutter plus flush draw, should we be leading that to try and clean up some of our equity against him and put him in a tough spot in between the two? Like, where can we lead semi bluff?
Well, you're not going to be leading a whole lot of semi bluffs. I feel like in 3-bet pots multi-way. I mean, 3-bet pots multi-way, there's something going on anyways that's sort of suboptimal, right? Because it's very rare. Because somebody's going to have to have cold called in between. But I wouldn't really have a leading range in this particular spot, because it's not like if the ace high hands are going to check back on the flop, you can just start betting turn. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, you're giving like some sort of free equity to overcards, offsuit overcards, right? Like if it gets checked through. But I would like to maximize sort of my fold equity, get the pot big with a combo draw in the form of a check raise, just like I would do with my big hands. And you also will sometimes get like bluffing equity from your opponent as well. Like if he c-bets off ace queen, you check raise with 6-7 of hearts and he just folds. You see what I'm saying? So
yeah,
I don't know if I would have a leading range here all that much as a 3-bet in the middle. But okay, so you bet 100 and button calls, right?
Yep, that is correct. So villain 1 on the button just calls.
Yeah.
And now villain 2 wakes up and he check raises us to a small sizing, 250. So I went bet 100. We had just call, now a check raise to 250 there. And obviously his range is a lot wider. He's a little splashier. What's your thought on that?
So villain 2 only has 700 to start, right, from the big blind?
Yeah, correct.
I mean, well, you sort of want to pull the button in here, right? Like if you put in a 3-bet here, if the button has an overpair, he's just going to assume that you have a set. You can't face 2 raises. Like if I'm the button and even if I have aces here and you bet, I call, check raise, and then you re-raise, the guy's just going to fold. So you sort of want to make your hand look like a draw. So at this point, I probably would want to call to pull the button in. I mean, you're not deep with this guy. You know, if he's got like a set here, you blocking the top pairs, he could have a draw. I would just tend to just probably try to pull the button in here. It's interesting if you call and the button overcalls and the turn is like, say, a brick, like say like an offsuit jack, and then the big blind checks, you might actually check the turn. It's sort of really sort of fancy type of thing, but the flow of this hand is kind of odd, right? So you're calling the check raise, you're trying to pull the button in behind you, the button calls, and now let's say we get an offsuit, like I said, 10, offsuit jack, and now the big blind checks. I think at that point, you betting is sort of giving, like it looks very strong, like you've got a huge hand. If you check, the guys should be betting off like with a lot of overpairs. So I actually might play it tricky if that were to happen. I'm just saying, for example, but I would call to try to pull the button in here.
Yeah, and I was thinking the exact same way, because like we said, we're 700 effective with villain 2, but we've got like another 700 on top with villain 1. And I can certainly, I think you're right, make my hand look much weaker by just flatting here. And in PLO, we often are saying, you know, like what can we do with clean runouts or dirty runouts? Right. And in this spot, I feel like there's so many good cards for me on the turn.
Right.
That I was feeling like, yeah, I probably could take that exact move, which is not even bet, and have the button try and go for it and shut us out or whatever.
So you called.
So anyway, yeah, I did.
Okay.
I decided to call.
Yep.
I felt like if I re-raised exactly what you said, my hand is absolutely face up.
And button calls behind you as well?
Yeah. So I call, and then he thinks for a while. He does not instantly call. So he thinks for a while and then decides to call.
Okay.
And so now the turn is a card I'm not entirely pleased with, just because I feel like it can kill some action. It's the 5 of clubs.
So the pot is 904. I just want to recap for the podcast listeners. You raise with 8s in the hijack, button 3 bets to 60, villain 2 cold calls the big blind. And the board comes out 8-4-3 with 2 hearts, where the 8 is not a heart. And check, you lead for 100, button calls, big blind check raises to 250, you call, button calls. You put in 750 on the turn. So the pot's like 940, and you know the big blind probably only has like 400 left or something. So what's the turn?
Yeah, so the turn's the 5 of clubs. So you know, you could see some sort of like ace wheel suited get there, but that's really the only thing that I'm very concerned with here.
Yep.
And then I was kind of hoping, I was trying to think about what I would do if the big blind checked here, because that did look like kind of like a dirty card. And I was not quite sure what I was going to do if it got checked to, but then the big blind just moved in because, like you said, he did not have much left as opposed to the pot. And then here I decided that I wanted to try and invite the player behind me to overcall as well, so we could try and get to a river.
Yeah.
So I did just call, and then our villain thought for quite a long time, and then announced fold and held his cards, which meant he was going to show us what he folded because he obviously didn't want to.
Yeah.
And then he eventually revealed black aces on the button.
I mean, that's probably a pretty easy fold once the guy moves all in and you call. In between, this is kind of an interesting one because you're trying to like reel that button in. He does pick up a gut shot, sort of ass end wheel draw to a deuce. Big blind moves in for 400. You call, so the pot is like 1740. It's 400 for the button to call. I mean, if I was the button with aces, I don't think it would be like, oh, just an easy fold, because you've sort of played your hand kind of as a pull, like a draw, especially starting with the unorthodox lead out. Like, your hand does look like a flush draw. If he doesn't have the ace of hearts in his hand, I could see you having a lot of like nut flush draws here. So I think that you've sort of disguised your hand in the way that you've played it by just calling and calling. And he's getting like 4-1. I think it's just maybe he was like, well, you know, the guy in the big blind must have him beat here too. But I don't know if I'd fold here. If I were him, and the pot would be 1740, 400 for me to call, and you guys have like, you know, another 700 left, I might call and see the river and see what you do. Like, if the river's if I call with black aces at the end and I'm your opponent on the turn, and the river's a brick, and there's a side pot, and then suddenly you jam on a brick, like, I'm experienced enough in poker to realize that just can't be a bluff. Why would you be jamming into a dry side pot now, right? Like, you call the turn all in, I overcall with black aces, 8-4-3-5, I'm getting 4-1. Now the river is like an offsuit 9, right? You've got 700 left, and now you jam the river. Like, that's never a bluff, right? Like, I mean, so the more I think about it, the more that's a really, really tight fold by that guy. But it all starts because of your unorthodox flop play. So
yeah, because it really looks like the big blind has the set and I have the draw, right?
Yeah, or the big blind has something that he's overplaying. I mean, I think it looks like you have the draw, especially if I don't have the ace of hearts. It's just unfortunate that this guy folded. What did the big blind end up having?
So that big blind rolled a hand I was not expecting to see at all, because I think the pre-flop play was poor. And then I can kind of understand why he wanted to drive it. But he rolls ace of hearts, 8 of hearts. So he had top pair and the nut flush draw. And then he picked up the wheel gutter on the turn.
And then did you hold up?
I did hold up. Yeah, it was the exact card that we wanted on the turn. It was a black jack on the river.
Oh, okay. Jack X. You see what I'm saying? You see what I'm saying? Like, say, for example, the button overcalled, right? The 400 all in on the turn. Like, the guy moves all in, you call, button calls. Now we're at the river, right? So we're at the river. The pot's 2140. You have 700 left. The river's a jack. There's no money on the side. 8-4-3-5 jack. What are you going to do at the end from up front? Right.
Sorry. I think this is a good question. I think because of pot size, I do want to jam, but your point about dry side pot and but then what am I trying to fold out there either? So I really need to have, and then I need to have it.
To take another level from this as well, and you know that, like, I advocate making super, super thin value bets, right, all the time. If that scenario were to come down where the big blind moves all in, you call on the turn, 8-4-3-5, and the button overcalls with black aces, right? And the pot's 2100. You have 700 in front of you with a dry side pot. And now the river's a jack. If you check, okay, and I have black aces there on the side, what do you think that I would do? And I want you to think about it for a second.
Okay.
What do you think the best play would be with someone with black aces on the river in that spot when check two in a dry side pot. If your button villain got there at the end and you check the river on a blackjack, given this action on 8-4-3-5, river's a jack, you have black aces, dry side pot, gets checked to you. What would you do?
I would check behind.
Yes.
I just don't see how I get called by worse.
Yes, you should check behind because your hand looks like it's a draw. There's no value in betting. So
yeah,
there really isn't much value in checking from up front. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just like, but again, if I was that guy with aces, it would be really hard for me. It would be, you just wouldn't seem to be bluffing though either. So
what's the sickest play? If it's a $2,100 pot, I have 700 in front of me, and I bet like 350 on the river there.
Yeah, maybe you bet. Maybe you make some sort of like,
doing?
maybe you make some sort of ridiculous like block bet. Not all in, but you bet like 300. You know what I mean? You bet like 200 or 300. You just give the guy like some incredible price. That's probably, now that we talk it through, that's probably what the best play would be. You know?
Yeah, probably, because it would be too sick to fold, right? I mean, it
would just be, it would be, you'd own the guy. You would own me if I decided to overcall, on the turn. But it's a weird dynamic with no money out there, no money in the side, right? When this guy looks to have a big hand. Ryan, I appreciate the call again. PLO Battle Plan. You do 2 videos a month, right? I do 1 video a month and then 2 podcasts, right? So I want to say second Thursday of the week, right? Second Thursday,
fourth Monday.
Yeah. Second Thursday, fourth Monday, 1 podcast, 1 video, and now we're doing it in an organizational way where it's just not random like PLO hands. We're kind of doing it in an organized fashion, so you can check it out over there. Thanks for calling in, Ryan. I think that was the first time you've called in, right?
Yeah, it is. And I'll keep playing No Limit, and maybe I'll talk to you again. And I want to hear some Big O on the call-in show. So maybe I'll call in. We'll talk some of that.
Speaking
but
of
no double board absolute bomb pot hands, because that hurts my head.
Oh, that is that's really something here in Austin. Double board absolute bomb. I'm not going to get into it now with the Big O, but well, there'll definitely be a lot of that. All right, guys, so that's going to wrap it up for us, but I do want you guys to do me a favor. So we're trying to forge this relationship with TCH Austin, obviously. I'm trying to forge this relationship where Crush Live Poker is going to be doing things with them. I might be doing a little bit of commentary. I'm going to be playing on the show quite a bit. They are doing their live stream right now. They're playing a 5-5 game, and I think that they're going to do their live stream Mondays and Thursdays. And if that's the case and I get heavily involved, I actually might change the call-in show to back to Sundays. But if you want to watch poker, Live at the Bike is not on tonight. It's just that Wayne show. Head over to TCH Live. TCH Live, one word, TCH Live. Head over to their channel right now. They are live streaming right now, 5-5. Do me a favor, hop in the chat over there. Tell them that Crush Live Poker sent you. And if you like to watch, live stream poker, subscribe to their channel. Subscribe to their channel. I'm going to put the link in here to the channel in the chat. They don't have a branded link yet because I think they have to have X amount of views. But you can search on TCH Live, all one word, or you can click on the link right there. I'll probably head over there and watch a little bit right now, but they're playing straight 5-5. And then on, I think on Thursday, we're going to do a 1-3 match the stack game. So thank you guys for being with us. Again, if you want to get on the show and if you want to pre-submit your hand, you can do so. Email me, bart@crushlivepoker.com, or you can hit me up on Discord. It's been nice. I'll stick around a little bit in the chat, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.
Pulling out the coupe at the lot, told him fuck 12, fuck SWAT. Busting all the bells out the box. I just hit a lick with the box. Had to put the stick in the box. Pour up the whole damn seal. I'ma get lazy. I got the mojo deals. We been trapping like the 80s. She said the nigga so. Got the cash out. Told him wipe a nigga no. sell my soul, and I can back that. And I really wanna know where you at, where I was at back, where the stash at. Cruise the city in a bulletproof Cadillac, cause I know these niggas out there where the bag at. Gotta move smarter, gotta move harder. Nigga try to give me 5 mile water. I lay his ass down on my son, on my daughter. I had the Draco with me, Dwayne Carter. Lot of niggas out here playing, ain't ballin'. I done put my whole arm in the rim, Vince Carter. And I know Poppy get a key for the quarter. Shawty barely seen the double C's, I bought her. Got a bitch that's looking like a Leah, she a model. I got the pink slip, my whip is keyless. Compton, I'm about to get the key to the city. Patty, light up, see. Forgetting out the coupe at the lot. Told him fuck 12, fuck SWAT. Busting all the bells out the box. I just hit a lick